I met with an accident at the age of 7. There was this high tension line that was going across the roof. I somehow came in contact. Both my hands were completely charred. So then they had no choice but to amputate.
What is the story behind the driving license?
Getting the learner's license was also difficult. Get myself the permanent, the coveted permanent driving license. The first in the country. My name is in the Rinka Book of Records.
I got to know that you love many sports.
Sports is something that my parents introduced me to. So I started swimming, playing football, skating.
Some stories, they don't just inspire, they awaken us. Hello everyone, I'm Kautik Singh Chima, your host for an amazing series, Stories That Resonate. Today's guest has turned pain into purpose and loss into legacy. The story is about courage, hope, and rising beyond the limits. Without any ado, let's welcome Mr. Vikram Agnihotri.
I'm good. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, sir, and it's an honor. And we all are very inquisitive to know about your journey. This audience, the students who were really looking up to you and your talk today, we would love to know about your childhood, sir. And it would be before and after the incident happened.
As they say, life can be stranger than fiction. I think my life has been pretty amazing. It's been very eventful. It's been full of... there have been all kinds of experiences, highs and lows, but I have no regrets. That's all I could say.
So I would also like to know, we were having a chat and I could see your smiling face. We can all see your smiling face. It shows the resilience and the power and grit and determination. We have a word in Punjabi that's called Chardi Kala. That means high spirits and high spirits always. So you resemble that and we can have a huge round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you, parents. I have to give credit to my parents for that, especially my mother for instilling this, positive outlook towards life, and focusing on, happier moments and not the sad ones. But, as they say, sometimes ignorance is bliss. So I think that has helped me overcome this challenge, because I have not focused on my so-called weaknesses and focus more on my strengths. Again, thanks to my parents, I had this, I would call it a habit of always smiling. Lovely is that sometimes people wonder why I'm smiling.
So, also, I would like to know about the incidents. What happened?
I met with an accident at the age of 7. So you can say till the age of 7, I led a very normal childhood, like everybody else.
And do you remember?
Yes, I have very fond memories. In fact, we recently just, concluded a war, like Pakistan almost, came to war. So during 71 war, my father was posted at Gurdaspur. He was with DSF. He's a retired IPS officer, but he was on deputation with the Border Security Force. And his posting was at Gurdaspur. And that's when the war started. So I still have a lot of memories of that because there was a bunker behind our house. So as kids, for us, that was very exciting. Every time the sirens went on, somebody would pick us up and then run towards the bunker. So for us, it was fun. And then these planes would fly over, Gurdaspur. They were probably going to bombard Pathankot and one or the other. So we used to watch these planes, and when they were dropping their bombs, there were these tracer bullets. I don't know if you heard of tracer bullets. When you're firing in the night, they're like flares. So as kids, again, for us, it was more like Diwali. So I have a lot of fond memories. Not so much about using my hands. Let's just put it that way. It's not that, after the accident, I suddenly found myself not able to do anything, because till the age of 7, I think I was being taken care of.
And were you mischievous?
Oh, yeah. I was the younger of the two. I remember until now. I would always play, we had orderlies or people who used to take care of us. So my preference would be the guy who I could control. Some some slightly dim-witted or somebody who's not very smart. Very younger brother, I used to take full advantage of that. So it's in the age of 7, like I said, it was all fun and games. And then, of course, on I remember the date, it was 22nd of June, 1977. And it was again, well, a normal day. And in fact, in the evening, we went to call on some friends of ours. And we were having fun. We were just playing around. And, it was a very sort of healthy atmosphere, like you can say. And suddenly then, it all turned accidentally. We were playing around and there was this high tension line that was going across the roof. And we didn't realize the sort of, this risk involved. And I somehow came in contact. So both my hands were completely charred in a fraction of a second. Like I said, life changed permanently. And I was unconscious. Luckily, I obviously survived because my feet were not really on the ground. So there was no earthing that took place. So the impact was pretty much only till my hands. And of course, then there was total, commotion, chaos because nobody knew what had happened. In fact, I was still hanging on the wire, unconscious, but my hands were still clasping the wire. So then they came with a piece of wood or something and just, hit me on my hand. So I say, yeah. So anyhow, so that was a very, very sort of dark kind of, moment for everyone. So I spent almost then 3 months in a hospital because the doctors were trying to save as much of my original hand as possible because, for artificial limbs, literally every centimeter, every inch counts. So they weren't in a hurry to amputate. That again was something that I was fortunate. I spent 3 months in Bombay Hospital, Bombay, but then finally gangrene had set in. Gangrene is when your flesh is completely, not recoverable as it's dead. So then they had no choice but to amputate. So then finally both my hands were amputated above elbow. Luckily I have 2 shoulders which I put to good use. But yes, at that moment things really looked pretty bleak.
And I got to know that you love cycling and you still love it.
In fact, that is the last activity I did with my hands. I used to love cycling. And somehow I was not keen on, joining my families that evening. So I even literally ran out of my compound. I picked up my bicycle and I ran out. Then these people were sent after me. They caught me, brought me back. And then I was forced to go.
What about the fears? Like a child's, maturity. What were you feeling that I will not do these things? Maybe your passion or
no, I guess those thoughts didn't cross my mind instantly. Because my parents had created again a sort of a very false environment around me as if nothing had happened. It was not that, there was no melodrama, there was no crying or people saying what's going to become of his life. And, so I never realized the gravity of the situation. And then, of course, my mother, again, I will keep saying that, throughout the interview.
There was my
question. Yes, her role, obviously, I cannot overplay it, because, so she kind of, when I came back, I gained my consciousness after the operation, she just very calmly told me what had happened. She explained everything. That if they hadn't done it, then, this poison would have spread and you would have died and things like that. So it was necessary. But she also said, don't worry. I mean, we are all there for you and whatever happens, we'll all face it together. So I guess your parents giving you hope, telling you that everything's going to be all right. I think for a child, that is enough. You don't have to say a lot of things. Just being there is also good enough.
Would like to know who, apart from your parents, like your cousins or maybe your relatives, helped you to be what you are today?
So, of course, initially it was my family, my immediate family, my elder brother. He is only 13 months elder to me. So, he was more like a friend. Yes. And he obviously really cared a lot and looked out for me. I mean, I was still his younger brother. Although I never looked up to him as an elder brother, But he always, so he played a very important role. Especially when I stepped out of the house, especially when I finally got to go back to schools. It took a long time convincing a lot of schools to give me admission because my parents were, again, adamant that I will not go to a special they said like, I need to go to the same school as my elder brother.
Great.
So we can understand that, way back in 78, infrastructure, the mentality, it was all very different. Finally, I did get admission in a very nice school. So when we went to school, when we stepped out of the house, my brother was always there. Because he would be now. We busted me out. So brother, I remember when Vivek and I used to fight, he would hit me with his hand and I would kick him back. He would go to mother, you need to tell him that it's not equal.
And what about your friends? What about the peers, the schoolmates?
I think that's what my mother again had taught me, because she said it's more about accepting yourself first. If you're not comfortable with yourself, you're going to make everybody else feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And that is not what you desire.
Yeah. So because as a child, so there's so much of, even if you're if I can say perfectly able, then also as a student cycle, there's so many things going on in your head, and there's some underconfidence. But you met with such an accident, and then what was the reaction of there, and how did you
Because I was very nervous.
Yeah.
Because you can imagine that I lost all my confidence. It's whenever I saw myself in a mirror, it used to look very odd even to myself. So I actually didn't leave the house for a long time, because I didn't know how to face the world. So it was my mother who was there as she was literally my friend, philosopher, guide, she was my counselor. She was always the one, unless you literally go and do something, how would you know, whether, what you're thinking is going to happen or not. And again, the most important thing is that she would tell me that you haven't done anything wrong. It's an accident. It can happen to anyone. So the idea is that you need to face things head on. You can't dodge these questions or, dodge situations. And that's the only way you can actually come to terms with things. So she was the one who insisted I go down and start playing, whatever sport is being played. If I, ask them whether I can join in. So I guess that's okay. I took the first step. So that really made the difference. And if I just stood around at the back and waiting for somebody to ask me, would you like to join in or something, I don't think things would have worked out. So it was more like taking the initiative, of course, and of course it's taken a long time.
I got to know that you love many sports. And if you could name a few, and what are you passionate about?
Again, extracurricular activities or sports is something that my parents introduced me to, and it kind of helped me overcome the challenge. It was actually rehabilitation. I didn't realize. You don't realize, but as children, when you're playing any sport, you're physically getting fitter. Your mind is getting sharper. Your balance is something that you gain. So it's just through fun and games that you actually become, more evolved and developed. So my parents kind of introduced me to that. They asked me to, my brother was always somebody they used very well. I would say use as in they said, Vivek is going to learn swimming. So are you interested? So I said, yes, of course. Because as a younger brother or younger sibling, you always feel the elder is getting a better deal. Whatever toy is getting is better. Clothes are better. So you want everything that sometimes you get the second man. So they used to use him that way. So Vivek was learning swimming. So I volunteered. I said, okay, I'm also going to learn swimming. So not having knowledge is good. I keep saying that, ignorance is bliss, because I didn't realize that for swimming you need hands. If I had known that fact, I would not have maybe volunteered also. I would have said, mere paas haath nahi hai, how would I swim? But again, and then again, nobody actually said no to me. That's another thing I would like to I'm very grateful for. That when I actually went to the club, the trainer or the coach didn't say, no, you can't swim without hands. He also took it up as a challenge, or as let's give it a go. So I started swimming, playing football, skating. I'm very good at skateboarding. Even now, every opportunity I get, I pick up. Yesterday I saw somebody with a skateboard in your campus.
Yeah. She is a skateboarder.
Yeah, so I don't do all the stunts and everything. I'll fall flat on my face, but I love skate that still. Of course, when you're physically fit, I think you can take on more stress also, and you don't get fatigued and you don't get tired and stuff like that. So I guess, a lot of the activities which I did as a child, I still seem to be doing those activities. I'll show you some pictures later on.
Now, what is the story behind the driving license? Was it a goal or a passion or something you wanted to achieve? What was it about?
See, again, I would go back again to the time when I lost my hands. My parents had a vision, of course. They wanted to see me, independent, for everything. So that was their, I would say, long-term vision was to see me independent. Of course, the goals were always very short-term. It was almost getting through a day was our, goal. So in that sequence, I think driving was something that I was still dependent on others. Whether it was my own driver or my friends, if I need to go for a party or something, they would have to come and pick me up, drop me back. And sometimes they would get late, and I like to be punctual, so I would get very worked up, get upset with my friends. So I guess somewhere in, back of my mind, I felt like, here, this is something that I'm dependent on others for. I basically needed an automatic because obviously with a manual, both my feet will be occupied. How will I steer? And then initially, all the automatic cars were all these imported foreign cars, which are very expensive. And even then, the bigger question was the license. So imagine I invest 25, 30 lakhs in a car and then I don't get a license. Then that will be literally a dead investment. Then finally, I think I moved to a new house, which was again very far from my football ground. And I found it very difficult to reach the ground. Although I still, for 6 months, I used to catch a bus. And imagine I would get up in the morning, walk to the bus stop, take a local bus, get down, somebody will pick me up. Then he would go and play, then he will drop me back at the same stop. So I did that for almost 6 months. It wasn't then I realized why don't I think about driving? And by then I think these small cars, like Maruti, Celerio, and a lot of cars had automatic transmission. And around the same time, I was doing my LLB honors. I've done my BCom, then my master's in economics. Then after a gap of 24 years, I did my LLB. And then currently I'm doing a PhD, a thesis. So I like to keep myself, involved in.
Black us to shame. So, yeah, please.
So anyhow, so around the same time, around 2014, I had joined my LLB honors. So I got used to, reading acts and, these, because otherwise you run away. Somebody tells you to read an act, you're like, nahi, it's very confusing. There's so many ors and buts and this and that. So anyhow, so I went through the Motor Vehicle Act to see what is the status. So I was very pleasantly surprised that there was no disqualification. Nowhere does it say that a person has to drive only with hands or cannot drive with feet. And luckily, as I said, for me, because there was no disqualification, that gave me a lot of confidence that, okay, fine. It'll take a lot of convincing. It'll take me maybe a lot of time. But finally, let's say the act is on my side. So finally, I realized that the driving test, again, was something that was important. If you fail in your driving test, that's the only way they can actually, So that's why I then bought myself a car. Sometimes it's more about putting the money where your mouth is, guys. In the sense, you need to invest. You need to have that faith and confidence in your own capabilities. So I bought myself a Celerio in 2015, an automatic. And prior to that, I'd only took a trial twice. And I just felt that, hey, I can do this. Expect something from me. I will try to prove you right. I will not like to disappoint in a positive way. So somehow I drove the car out, and within hardly a month or two, I was driving better than most people. I tell people that two things. You need to have a cool head. When you're driving, you need to keep yourself.
You don't feel when you, especially in the Punjab road, there's so much of honking. Even in Delhi, I believe.
That's when, it becomes more of a pain than a, measure. Initially, of course, getting the learner's license was also difficult. But luckily, because I come from a place called Indore, Madhya Pradesh, and a lot of people know me for what I was doing. People knew that I swim, I play football, I ride with my feet, I shave. So they knew that I'm capable of doing stuff. So that really helped my reputation, let's say. So after a little bit of convincing, I said, look, learner's license you give to everyone because that's how they learn. So you are assuming that they don't know how to drive. they will only be able to when you give them a learner's license. So you need to give me a learner's license. So finally, after again couple of months, they said, okay, fine, let's give him a learner's license. Probably he'll not come back for the permanent or something like that. They wanted to get me off their back. After a month or so, then again everyone suggested that you drive so well, you might as well strike while the iron is hot. You get yourself a permanent license. Yeah. That then there was a bit of a problem. There was something hindering this in the law itself. So I realized that. See, that's something that again you need to realize. You can't keep saying, no, you have to give it to me and, how can you do this to me? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You need to work together. You need to understand the problem. Yes. So I realized that, yes, there was a problem. So then I started approaching the people who could help me. So I went to my state minister for transport. I even went with Senator Boyce. Yeah, he is very, very considerate. And they also, I think maybe somebody pointed it out earlier. So they also knew that there was a bit of a problem with the act. So anyhow, finally, a lot of time just went by. And fortunately for me, they kept renewing the learner's license. So that meant that I could still drive. So I was driving around, on my own. But then finally, after 15 months, I get a call from the RTO. And I was quite surprised because by then he had started avoiding my calls because he didn't have an answer for me. Nice of him to just renew so that I could still keep driving around. But then there was no word on the permanent status. So finally, when I got a call, I called him back and he's saying, okay, what is the status of your learners? I said, it's valid. So he said, you come tomorrow and tomorrow itself we are issuing the permanent license. So you must be very happy. It was actually music to my ears. And surprisingly, I wasn't that happy because I didn't expect things to work out so quickly. So that was my mission. That was what, got me out of bed every day. It's like, sometimes if somebody comes and just takes away your fight, like, okay, fine, it's over, you start wondering, now what? Now what? Need something to keep you motivated or, something you're working on. So, again, after that call, first thing I was like, this was too easy. Take it. Actually, I was prepared to take it to whatever level, Supreme.
Would you have tried for commercial pilot?
Well, a lot of people ask me to do that, and I'm like, that's not practical. What will I do with the commercial pilot license? Finally, I get myself the permanent, the coveted permanent driving license. The first in the country. My name is in the Limca Book of Records for that. So okay. Again, that was not the intention. That is not why I was. I just wanted to drive. And of course, I realized, somewhere down the road that I was not just literally fighting for myself, but for the entire community. Let's say for all the different people. Everyone was aspired to get a license and maybe was told no. I realized that, that is what had become my mission in the end. So, because whatever had happened to me would have reflected on everyone. Helping others to get a license. That is something that I feel that was actually gives you a lot of, encouragement and, confidence to keep going on. When you realize that you are not just, it is not exclusive. It's not like, being selfish. It's like, it's like, I feel that sometimes, whatever you do should be more inclusive. The more people it benefits, the more satisfaction or, you'll really you'll get more happiness out of that. So again, I feel that, I've been very fortunate that I'm in that position. So I've helped around 20 odd people to get licenses all over the country. That's something that I do on a very fancy. And I do it, I think I don't do it out of how do I say, I do it very humbly. It's almost like it's my responsibility that has come to me and I should do it in the most humble manner possible. But then there are 3 other people without hands in the country. One is in Haryana, then there's one in Tamil Nadu, there's one in Kerala. In fact, Kerala, there's a girl who has been given a license. So that gives you the real satisfaction, that you've done something for the community.
And what about The journey from getting the driver's license to become a rally racer.
That's too adventurous. Well, I don't know if it is adventurous, but yes, I've been following motorsports for a very long time. Yes.
Every boy does.
Yes, I think that's, I guess, but even a lot of girls do lately. So, I mean, like, it's not just, and if I saw the good drivers now are women, so they're changing that, that myth also. Yes. So, anyhow, yes, motorsports was something that I've always longed for. And, I guess somewhere in my back of my mind, I maybe felt that maybe I will never get to do this. It's one of those things that I maybe felt like, there's that this is not for me, or I will never get a chance to actually sit behind the wheel or something. So finally, when I got myself a license, that was, of course, the stepping stone. I mean, because you need a civilian license before you can get a professional rally or a motorsports license. You have to get another license, but you need the civilian license first. So as soon as I got that, I started exploring, what can I do? Like, where? So my first event, I actually was invited. You know what I was telling you about expectations, eh? So this gentleman who organizes a very good event in Indore called Malva Adventures, I had spoken to him prior when I wasn't getting the license. I was trying to get help and, so I met him. So he knew about me. And then, of course, when I got the license, it was all over the media, on national level, everywhere, like, it was so he actually came and invited me for the event. Now, without knowing exactly what I'm getting myself into, I said yes to him. Knowing me, it's like I just cannot show. See, it's one of those things also that you can't show doubt or you can't show weakness or, you can't. And it's more like if somebody else can do it, why can't I? Then I, of course, did some preparation. I always do preparation, boss. I make it sound very casual.
Yeah, you said making it sound very, very easy.
That is my quality, boss. I make things sound very easy. I will never give you the impression that it's like very difficult because I want everyone to try. So when he came, he invited me. I said, okay, fine. So then I looked up what I needed. So I needed firstly a navigator, somebody who had faith in my driving, literally willing to put his life in my feet, like, So one of my very close friends who plays soccer with me, his name is Ankit Malhotra, but everybody calls him Milo because he has a build like yours. He's a big guy. So he volunteered. He said, I'll come with you. I said, chalo, that's good. So then I needed a vehicle. So the only car available at my disposal was the Scenario, which again is not the ideal car. I said, maybe their car, but I said, okay, let's just go with this, what we have. Sometimes if you wait too long for things to be perfect, for the right time, for the right things, if that moment would just pass. And I guess, a lot of people have this habit of always this procrastinating or just saying that I wish I had this or let me, always crying about things they don't have. Yes. And they don't actually realize the things that are available at their disposal. So anyhow, so we decided we have the car, we have the navigator, so let's go. Yeah. So we went and everyone assumed that I'm the navigator because that is how it is, and looking at Ankit Milo's size, he must be the driver. So they were quite shocked when we told them, no, it's the other way around. But then we competed for like almost 3 days. And everyone was like, because when they realized that we went through the same challenges, same hurdles, and we came out of it, so the kind of respect you get is amazing. And to everyone's shock, including our own, I came first in the amateur category. Oh, wow. First event, first time ever. And we came first in the amateur category. So Ankit and I were looking at each other, what did we do? Except for having fun. We are so fun in a scenario. So I guess because we were not we were not under any pressure. We weren't there to prove anything to anyone. We were just there to just enjoy the experience and learn. So maybe we could do a better job next time. But then, so next time. So there was a second rally turned out to be the Desert Storm, which is an iconic, event which I've been associated as in a lot of my friends would go. And again, I would be I wish I could go kind, So when we got the opportunity, again an invitation, but then you were interested this time.
Right.
Again, we didn't have the resources. So again, you went in a scenario, again, Ankit beside me. And this is a 5-day event in the deserts. I mean, it is really a grueling, whether it is actually grueling. It's all about survival. In fact, that is what everyone will tell you on day one is, first just survive. Don't try to be like, you don't need to win it. You just have to stick around. Because a lot of people just, have their breakdowns and a lot of people give in, give up. In fact, I'd like to tell you one thing, talking about positive influence. On day one of the event, we just started, the flag off, and we started, and he hardly went like 2 kilometers and he got stuck in the sand. Because the sand near Bikaner is very fine, it's like powder. And obviously Ankit and I would get down and we'll have to dig ourselves out there. We went hardly another 100 meters, we got stuck again. So then I realized, bas, abhi to ek ghatta nahi hua. They told me we were an hour of this event and this is happening to us, and we got 5 days. And I was feeling sorry for Ankit. Because he will have to do a lot of the, all the hard work. Yes. So I actually wanted to quit. I'm one who will always, accept that, okay, we made a mistake. Because we brought the wrong vehicle. We should have come in a different vehicle or something like that. So I was ready to quit in that sense. But it was Ankit who said, no. Now that we are here, we are going to, stick around So again, had it not been for him, I think we would have driven home.
Right. But you survived.
So we survived and we came second runners up in the professional category.
Oh, wow.
We get our first one of those big checks that they give you, 15,000 as a big check and in front of the entire fraternity. I don't think anyone would have actually had that podium finish on their first attempt. This is the first time at the weight. So we put in all the effort and it kind of paid off. So I've done 7 events and I have 5 podium finishes out of 7.
Wow. Oh, lovely. And I guess, sir, being a rally racer, swimmer, soccer player, you're a TEDx speaker.
Yeah.
How do you balance everything, and how do you keep yourself humble? That is my question.
I think it again comes from family. I've seen my parents, I've seen the kind of, heights my father's been at, and, and how he has remained very down to earth, very humble and, very helpful. So I think that, of course, is in the genes. And then, see, it's because all the things that I've done for myself, not to prove anything. People who are trying to prove something are the arrogant ones. You'll find that people who are doing things basically for themselves or maybe to help others will always, I think, will be on the humble side. You're not looking for fame or money or anything like that. It's just a smile is good enough. So I guess it's all about and I think I've been very fortunate. Frankly speaking, I think I've been very lucky. I've been very, very fortunate.
Perfect, sir. The level of procrastination this generation, including mine, millennial and Gen Zs, we do that अच्छा जिम करना है कल कर लेंगे, ये अचीव करना है कल कर लेंगे, we have time. So I would love to ask you, if this incident wouldn't have happened, would you achieve the same goals right now or no?
No. I feel it's the challenge, of who I am. Like I keep saying, it's what I've overcome. The challenges that have come in my way and I've overcome those challenges has given me the confidence. You need to either create a challenge, I don't know, maybe learn to play an instrument or do something that you haven't done, before. Or if there's something that you fear, just face it. That's instead of, procrastinating or running away from it. Yes. But I would like to think that I've again been very lucky that this challenge was given to me on a silver platter, literally, I didn't have to do anything. So I consider that also lucky. But I think most of the, I would say, young generation or I'm sorry, I'm calling them regular people, but, they have to create these challenges in their lives. You'll be surprised what all we are capable of doing. And then it becomes like an addiction. It's more like, once it's like, you overcome one challenge, you're looking forward to the next one. It's almost like a domino effect, you have. So it's something that I insist that, you must have. Because see, sooner or later, life will throw a curveball at you. They will throw something at you. Yes. And if you're not prepared for it, then you are in trouble.
You being an author, and this lovely book which we can see, and such a touching name, Look Ma, No Hands. I would love the audience to see it and do read it. And I would also like to know, say, if we have to take 10 key points or maybe few key points, whatever you want to tell from this book.
Is a tribute to my late mother. Unfortunately, I lost her in 2019. It was a very sudden kind of demise. And of course, I was missing her a lot. I mean, because she was, as I said, my friend, philosopher, guy. We had so many beautiful moments. We had similar, tastes. We used to enjoy the same kind of. So she was truly my, best friend, you can say. So I was obviously missing her, and I wanted to do something in her memory. So this thought came that why don't I try to inspire kids, young kids. I mean, basically, what she had done for me at the age of 7, I'm attempting to do it through this book. That anyone who reads this, any kid, will be inspired. That I can guarantee. This book gave me a lot of, because when I was writing it, I was actually reliving those moments. So that would make me happy. So it's all about if you can give meaning to any adversity or anything, then it becomes easier to overcome it also. The book kind of covers and touches upon all what we have spoken so far about not giving up, of having the right company, right friends, everything that we have spoken so far. It's pretty much there in this book.
Very great animated way.
Yeah, it is a graphic animation book. Yes, this is where I think she's telling me, this book, that page that you'd open, the one before that, she's actually telling me you need to go and play with kids downstairs. Yeah, it's but yeah, this one. She's like, So yeah, I guess, and I got a good publisher from Chennai, Tulika Publications, who have published this book. So I'm very, again, grateful to them also. And this book is available on Amazon and on the online platforms. So it's important that we firstly use our time well. Then the energies are also limited. You don't have so much energy that you can do 10 things at the same time. So you need to devote your energy to the thing which you feel is the most important.
I would love to ask students, you can ask few questions here. I believe they were quite eager. Anybody who wants to ask a question?
So, hello, sir.
Hey.
So, I'm Sadhya Sharma. Sir, I want to ask you, throughout your journey, how did you keep this positive attitude throughout your journey?
I guess, as I told you, because I was engaged in firstly a lot of activities. So that became as a distraction initially. But then somehow that keeps you firstly in a very positive state, because you're occupied. Or if, let's say, as they say, the idle mind is the devil's workshop, right? So if you're going to sit idle and just have thoughts or doubts and, things in your mind, you need to just engage yourself with something, so... And again, I think this question, my wife would be better at answering, because she's a psychologist. She's sitting there. She's like I said, she's a psychologist. So maybe you can ask her this later.
Sure, sir.
Yeah, the question. Good afternoon, sir. So, for somebody who has a speech impediment, I have found your talk rather very insightful and very inspirational as well. What would you say to someone who has everything physically but still feels empty inside?
Emotional roller coaster question.
Well, I guess the question may, what you're saying, the answer is pretty much in that the physical doesn't matter so much as much as the mental. Yes. So it doesn't matter whether you are complete from the outside, but if you are not confident from within, then it's, in fact, it becomes more of a problem then, because you expect other things. I'm not somebody who likes to preach also, by the way. I like to think that people are smart, they're aware of a lot of things. And we know what we are doing wrong or what we are doing right.
Yeah.
You have a conscience. And I think, for me, a conscience is something that I can never argue with. I mean, I will always try to do the right thing.
Right, so thank you so much. Sir.
Have any last question from the audience? Anybody?
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Yuvraj. So, sir, my question to you is you earlier told us that you love to play football. So, being a footballer myself, I want to ask that don't you feel any difficulty playing football?
In fact, I have an advantage over you. मेरे hand call नहीं कर सकता
That was a good one.
No, again, see, it's a contact sport. So you will collide. You go for a 50-50 ball, you're going to get injured. But that is what makes it interesting. You know, football, the reason I love playing football is firstly, it's a team sport. You know, it's unlike an individual sport, here you need to first coordinate with your fellow players. There are days when you might play well, but you still lose because of maybe other people, or you play badly and still, so it's more about like, it teaches you a lot of things while you're playing. And when, of course, on the field, when you play, you're prepared in the sense, that you will fall. Like for me, when I fall, there's nothing to break my fall. I will hit the ground. That's for sure. The only thing is whether I fall flat on my face or on my back. So I guess I don't feel any, I think, difficulty or compared to any other player on the ground. I mean, it's pretty much the same. And as I said, it's all, again, it's something that I just love doing so much that I'm willing to pay any price for it. It's like when I say it's my passion, it means that, it's not easy, but I'm not ready to give up on it. Even if I get injured, I recently fell, my chin opened up because I fell on my face. But I was back on the field as soon as possible. It didn't deter me it didn't stop me from playing. So I guess that is what passion is all about.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm happy to know that you also play football, and was welcome.
And sir, my last question, you mentioned about your mother, your parents, and your brother as well. What about your better half? What was her role?
I think, Prachi is the best thing that I could have asked for. Even, I mean, in the sense, she has brought so much, I would say, stability to my life. And
So sweet.
and and what I like about her, she challenges me. In terms of knowledge, in terms of a lot of things, it's something that I feel that is, again, something I look forward to, because we play a lot of games. We play Boggle and she beats me. And then, of course, so I guess I mean, as a companion, I always wanted somebody who's, I mean, again, equal. I don't mind if she's better than me, because that will inspire me or motivate me to do even better.
Yes.
I don't want to feel that I'm the best or like, I'm now invincible. So I look forward to the challenge. I enjoy that. So I think she has brought in that. And of course, we both have a lot of things we share. We enjoy traveling and, so I think, I think.
Perfect.
Yes,
it was.
He's perfect. Yes, right.
You'll go home safely.
Thank you.
It was a lovely conversation with you, sir, and it is our honor and a pleasure to have this conversation. Thank you very much.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.